Now, All Things Real Estate continues on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN. Once again, here's your hosts, Gary Kelly and Brad Aubergon.
Hi, and welcome to All Things Real Estate on WCRN. I'm Gary Kelly.
And I'm Brad Aubergon.
And Brad, who do you work for?
I am the Senior Loan Officer with Envision Bank and Mortgage. Gary, who do you work for?
I work for Remax Executive Realty, but I actually work for our clients. I think you work for Cindy, but that's another whole story for a different day. So Brad and I are recording this from our homes. I am high atop French Hill in wonderful Marlborough, Massachusetts.
And Brad, I am high atop my dining room table in Westboro.
In Westboro.
Westboro, Massachusetts.
We're recording this on April 15th, formerly known as Tax Day. This year it's not. And the reason it's not is the whole virus thing. And normally we don't say the date that we record these shows. And we do that intentionally because, we want to have a timeless show, so to speak. And on this one, it's hard to be timeless when everything that we've got has taken over our reality. Brad, how are you finding the operation in the Corona? By the way, I should have had a Corona with me. In the Corona era.
It's interesting, Gary. I'm used to working in an environment where I have multiple screens up. I have two whiteboards in my office. I have hard copy files and all sorts of things. And now I'm working from a laptop, from my dining room table, and making do and making it happen. But it's it has its challenges at times. But it's also, I think, revealing a lot of opportunities to kind of really make things happen for our clients and get things done and streamlining a lot of the business that we do in many ways.
See, I think that that's one of the big things that is going to come out of this is that we are going to be in an environment where certain inefficiencies are coming out. Give you an inefficiency. So many times it's, we've got to go to the property. We got to do this. Well, a lot of times now we're not doing that, but we're still getting the work done. Right. And so that's something that may be good. In the case of my particular office, they really don't want us in there. Okay, so I'm working from home. That's fine. I was set up to work from home before all this happened, and going to the office wasn't that big a deal. But if you want to meet someone, it used to be you'd go to Starbucks. You'd grab a coffee. That was a common thing. Hey, let's grab a coffee. Well, you're now grabbing a Zoom session somewhere. Right. How about yourself, Brad?
It's very interesting. So, and again, I think that's, one of the things you and I talked about with our show today is we kind of wanted to talk about, the first segment of the show, talk about some of the challenges that we faced and how we've overcome them. And then in the second segment, talk a little bit about what we think the future is going to look like. One of the things that, we've had that was challenging is in what I do, there's we have systems, we have people working together, we have underwriters, we have processors, we have funders, we have all sorts of loan openers. And we're used to working in an environment where we're a stone's throw from each other. And now we are all separated. My company, not only did your company not want you were going to the office, but our company as well. And so we were able, in a very short order, to set everybody up decentralized, including, other than the funders, I think, that go in and make sure the wire transfer is done. Everybody, my processor was working out of their home. The loan opener is working out of their home. And we're all communicating using technology. And to the client, it's seamless. But to us, it's a change of business. It's changed what we did.
I think that the thing that for me has been a challenge is the way we go about doing things is fundamentally changing. Used to be, we get a new listing, we're all excited, everyone high fives. And then we put together an approach where we go out with the stager and we go through the house, we move things around. And then we have the cleaner come in, and then we have the photographer come in. And then we get the house ready for an open house. Well, these days, we're not really doing it that way, okay? We can do staging virtually. And the challenge then becomes, are the people in the home able to move furniture around, or do they need help doing that? That's a different problem that we've had in the past, where we just kind of show up with a team of people and we work it through. Photography, not all the real estate companies are working right now. Not all the real estate, well, actually, that's a true statement too. Some of the real estate companies are saying, we're going to hold off. And they're starting to get to the point of saying, you're not going to be able to do that forever. But some of the photography companies are saying, they're photographers, they don't want to go into people's houses. And it's really an interesting one. They don't want to get sick as the photographers, and they certainly don't want to be responsible for getting someone sick if it's the homeowner. So that's been an interesting challenge. The way we go about doing showings, we don't do open houses anymore. We just don't. Now, we might do a virtual open house. We've done some of those with Zoom, where we literally have a live session going, walk through the house, and people are able to ask questions as we're walking through the house. That actually works well if you have a good internet connection, but it doesn't work very well if the internet connection is slow and spotty. But going through the house, we actually had one recently where the house went on the market just as the stay-at-home advisory went into effect. We had a couple put an offer in the house. Having only seen the photos that we had taken and the pictures, the tours that we had taken, because they're sitting in Michigan. The first time they saw the house was when they came out for the inspection. And the inspection, we all looked like we were, going into surgery. We had masks on, gloves, booties, and there were rules. Some of the rules, you can't use the bathroom. You don't know what's in the bathroom, and you don't know what you're going to leave in the bathroom. I know that sounds odd, but it was different. You really go through and do a showing that's, hands in pockets or eyes only, because you don't want to, again, pick up something or leave something behind. Obviously, there's no handshaking going on. That's pretty clear. So it's hard to do all this while at the same time making sure we adhere to fair housing laws, because we don't want to appear like we are discriminating. But we do ask people now, have you been in any of the target areas? Have you been exposed in the last 2 weeks? Are you having a fever? That kind of stuff. I'm not a medical person, but these are the things that we're told make sense to ask. It's an interesting time.
It sure is. It sure is, Gary. And it sounds like you're doing, the steps that you're taking are certainly unprecedented. It's never been like this before, but it's also respectful, I think, out of everybody involved, whether it be the buyers who could be potentially walking into a home that might have some sort of infection, or the sellers who might have buyers walking in. You're asking everybody to kind of take that extra step of due diligence and responsibility, social responsibility. And I think that's a good thing. You mentioned me recently that you had some clients that wanted to see your property, and you said, well, listen, I'm happy to show it to you, but before I show it to you, would you, at least go online and look at the virtual tour that we did first to make sure this is something that, you're interested in? Because again, anyone walking into a property, there's always some sort of, potential risk, anything like that. So that extra piece of due diligence, I think, is a good thing. I think it's part of being socially responsible. We're seeing the same thing on our end as well. A lot of what we do, in meeting with the clients, often I meet with them virtually anyway, whether it's through something like this, a video cast like this, a video conference like this, or a phone call. But at some point, you're meeting them personally, and whether it be at a closing, whether it be different things. On the listing side, certainly we have an appraiser going into a property. And those are some of the challenges that we had to face as this came forward. Getting an appraiser into a property where somebody potentially may be sick, they're certainly concerned for their health, and you can't blame them. So, or if there's an elderly person in there that may be high risk, they don't even have to be elderly, they could just be high risk. You have to be courteous, you have to be sensitive to that. And the workarounds that we've, put in place have been working. Even Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have cooperated. They've allowed what's called drive-by or desktop appraisals on purchases, so that we're not putting people at risk. And that's a big deal, to be able to get, to change something that hasn't been changed since I can remember. And that's, as a result of the environment that we find ourselves with. Some of the other challenges we had to confront with were the smoke detector certifications. That's a big deal. We're required in Massachusetts to have a smoke detector certification. And I know you were telling me a story the other day about you went in there, some of the towns have stopped it completely. They're not even issuing them anymore.
There is a process now that the state has put into effect,
Right.
that if you can't get the smoke detector certificate before the closing, that it now the responsibility transfers to the buyer to get it done.
That is correct. That's correct, Gary. But there's a second part of that, which is the fact that the insurance company that the buyer chooses has to be willing to show that is enforced, because part of that insurance policy was that there's operating smoke detectors in there, and without that certification, there's no guarantee. So that's the other side of it. There's buyers that are absolutely taking on that risk, which is wonderful that we can get that done, and that I shouldn't say risk, that obligation to make sure that they're operating and that they are certified once this thing ends. But the other part is the insurance company that they choose has to say, yes, we understand there's no smoke detector certification given what's going on. That policy is still enforced, because if the day after the closing, an accident were to happen and the house were to burn down, there has to be, the lender has to be absolved, the buyer's equity has to be absolved, all of that has to be, put into place. So there's a lot more to it.
So Brett, I've had some towns on the smoke and CO thing where they say, we're in a state of emergency, we're not going to come out. Okay, that's an approach. I've had other towns like Southborough specifically where they said, we'll do a FaceTime session. You can walk around with your phone, we'll ask you the questions, you show us and hit the button and have it ring. Right. And frankly, that was an example of an efficiency. I was able to be there, could have been a homeowner, and then the fire department was on the other end of the phone. Brett, I think we should begin to think about what we're going to talk about after the break. We're about to run into the break. We're going to talk about how we view this going forward.
Sure.
All right. So thank you, and stay tuned.
You've been listening to All Things Real Estate on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN.